So I watched this documentary called Ancient Aliens Debunked. We all know what the Ancient Aliens show is. Dave, you watched a bunch of them.
Yes, I've watched a bunch of them. Unfortunately, they're pretty bad.
They're pretty bad. Scale of 1 to 10, though, how much
1.
Full of shit do you think they are?
10 high.
10 is the highest.
10 is like a full barrel of shit.
Yeah.
7.
Okay. All right. And Ken, you've never seen them?
I'm going to go 12.
12 out of 10.
So overflowing barrel.
Ken has very low tolerance for this kind of nonsense. I mean, you don't believe in UFOs anyway, so ancient UFOs have got to be particularly aggravating.
No, I mean, if they were visiting the Egyptians, making appearances in front of them, why aren't they still doing it today? I mean, why not?
And so people would be like, well, they are, but, whatever. I don't believe in them either. And that is completely separate from saying that I believe there's life on other planets, but I just don't believe that there's any fucking interest.
Well, I don't believe there's life on other planets either. I think that we are the God's only creation, and fuck everything else.
Are you a flat worlder too?
No, I believe the world is actually an octagon. An octagon of pain.
Like one of those dice in your bag over there.
Oh, nice.
My bag of dice.
Well, that actually leads me to a part of the... So anyway, there is a 3-hour documentary online
3 hours
called Ancient Aliens Debunked. And I watched the whole thing. And,
I can make that documentary. They ain't real. Ban.
Bullshit. Just
BS.
in a loop for 3 hours. And then, like, you taking a shit for the other... Okay, so... where do I even start? Okay, I used to think Ancient Aliens was like this. They're saying it's sort of like they're giving a few things that are factually accurate about the ancient world. And then they're making these fantastical elaborations based upon their own sort of ideas or fantasies. Meaning that, of course, it's not true, but the initial facts are straight. But what the Ancient Aliens Debunked basically says is they don't even have the facts right in order to make their assertions about. They used one.
You just accept them as telling them facts.
Right, because they're kind of mundane, but it sets them up to do their alien shit.
Yeah.
But one of them was a place in Lebanon, and they said, there was a place built. It's something like 900 BC, 9,000 BC. And that, whatever, a couple thousand years ago, the Romans built temples on top of the base.
Yeah.
And then they point to these very large stones, which they claim are like 1,200 tons. And so the guy right off the bat says, okay, first of all, the heaviest one is like 800 tons. And he said, these are Roman retaining walls. We know exactly what they look like because, Greeks and Romans developed that technology when they were making all the Colosseums. And the ancient aliens, the guys are saying this was like prehistoric times because it was like, almost 10,000 years ago. And they're saying no one could have moved stone like that. And the guy was like, it's a Roman retaining wall, not part of this tiny little... There was some little flat bed of stone way over in some other area that was like older. But it was like, this is a Roman retaining wall. And here's how they did it. They show all these pictures of like cranes the Romans use or the rollers. They actually had cranes. They had cranes that could hold 5 tons a piece, and one of the things they did was hook up like 10 of those cranes. So basically,
it's only 50 tons.
Right. Well, yeah. But I mean, they wouldn't. But there was all sorts of. One of the things they did was use wooden rollers, and not only were there like depictions of them doing it, but you have to keep in mind like we know it happened because the Romans took all those, what are they called, obelisks? The big, they stole all those from Egypt. So
Yeah.
if you go there, they're all over the place. We even did it. We even took some fucking Egyptian obelisks. But the point is, and those things were about 600 tons. So even back then, we have proof. Like, okay, that's an Egyptian obelisk that the Romans took 2,000 years ago, and they had no problem doing it. So, all this to say, even those base points were wrong. You know what I mean? And that was the point of aliens. It was like, these rocks were too heavy for these people to move. These rocks were too heavy for people to move at that time. Therefore, aliens. And the whole fucking show is like that.
Yeah.
And the other one is seeing all these pictures of UFOs in medieval paintings.
Yeah.
And basically, they said they always show them out of context, and they always make the case that no one knows what they are, but they show like a dozen other pictures of like the sun and the moon depicted with a face in them, and then the sun and the moon depicted with a guy in a chariot, and it's always depictions of the sun and the moon. You see it over and over because this one had a guy without. The chariot didn't have a wheel on it, so it looked like a guy in a spaceship. They just show that, but they don't show the other 12 because you would know exactly what it was. And so they basically debunked every one of those medieval spaceship things. It was just this total bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's some of it. I mean, I could go on and on, but basically it's a fascinating documentary. The other thing is the Crystal Skull thing, the thing that Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull is based upon.
Yeah.
Basically, in 2007, they had tested every one of these crystal skulls, and there was only one left to test, but they'd found in every one of these skulls it was total fraud. They were manufactured in the 1800s, and what had happened was they had the modern enough tools to fashion crystal, and people started making these things and trying to sell them to museums as a scam. And so they tested them and to find what tools they used, and they could date the crystal. It's like, so it was all fake except for this one last one, and the only reason why it wasn't exposed to be a fraud is because the woman wouldn't let them test it. So I believe that, when did Crystal Skull come out? The Indiana Jones one?
2008.
Okay, so actually probably either the year before that or right around that time, they actually proved that final skull was, because she had passed away, and the guy, the widow, had got it tested, and they're like, no, this is fake too. So that whole thing is manufactured. You know, that's nothing to do. I never knew, but Ancient Aliens, the whole thing is all myth and mystery, and it's like totally proven to be just absolute crap, which makes it even more embarrassing for George Lucas, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe that means that the Holy Grail is not real. The Ark of the Covenant. All these things are all fake.
Pandora's box is real. I saw it on Tomb Raider.
All right.
Yeah,
It's definitely
it's
real.
a fact. It's just science.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I still enjoy watching those Ancient Alien shows because they kind of bring up things in your imagination, and they're fascinating. But when you hear this documentary, you just realize, like, wow, they're not even, like, they know that they're being dishonest. You know, because you can't be, because some of these people are professors and historians in those fields, and you can't say that stuff without knowing the truth, you know? So it was weird because I was like, wow, this is actually a little dishonest, which I just thought it was, you know.
I mean, maybe these people have warped their own whatever theories to fit the narrative for themselves.
Yeah.
And they totally, basically in their own minds, they deny, like, some of these things exist. Or, I mean, like the chariot thing, maybe they're just like, that was, the other 12, that was just something totally different. And this one is the real deal thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's some weird ones, like Ezekiel, like some ex-NASA astronaut, interpreted Ezekiel's description of God's chariot describes like a wheel within a wheel and 4 angels surrounding it. And the ancient alien theorists, which is not a real thing, that's not a real title, but ancient alien theorists extrapolated that to mean that it's aliens. A wheel within a wheel meant a gyroscope or some space technology, rather than like a rim, like a wheel, like a chariot wheel with spokes and then an inner wheel to connect to the axle. A wheel within a wheel, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty interesting. So that's what I have on that. I would give that 4 sandwiches. Check that out. Ancient Aliens Debunked. It's free on YouTube, and I saw it on Top Documentaries and a couple other places.
Nice.
Yeah.